Hey Cobs, welcome back to the channel. Yes, and you, Patches. Today we're going to be doing another completing older projects video, and we're going to be using this one. Now, like with the first Not Another Crap kit, I've already opened it and I've made a start on a couple of projects. I've only got 2 figures this time, and one's almost done. He just needs a few minor things doing, and the second one needs a fair bit doing. I want to get them both done in this video, but we'll just see how long everything takes. But for now, let's get going. The Hippocampus were a fantastic steed that could travel both on land and sea at incredible speeds. Their long bodies were covered in scales, making them streamline, their manes and tails made of seaweed, but their tails acted as powerful rudders when under the water. They had 2 sets of gills, one behind the jawline and one just above the shoulder. These remained closed whilst they were on land, where they would use 2 powerful nostrils at the end of their muzzles. The king's hippocampus was a majestic white beast with a golden mane and tail and fiery red eyes. So if that description of a hippocampus sounds unusual to you, that is because it is my own. I started a story back in 2017 when I was part of a writing group, and it was set under the ocean. Didn't get very far with it because unfortunately the group did disband in the end, and it was just a bit of fun, so I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but there were kind of Disney Atlantis vibes going on. Yeah, other stories took priority, so it's just been put on the back burner, I should say. Whether or not it will actually get finished, I don't know. But onto the sculpture itself. The hippocampus should have been an easy one to sort. It should have just been attaching him properly to the base and painting. So attaching him to the base, it was literally just putting a bit of extra polymer clay down, because at that point he was only attached by a couple of strands of his tail, and I knew he wouldn't be secure enough like that. But unfortunately, when he came back out of the oven, the base had cracked in a few places, so I had to fix that with the epoxy sculpt, but that's not an issue, you know, fairly straightforward. Once that had cured, I could move on to the painting. That should have been a lot easier than it was. The first issue I encountered whilst painting was mixing the right colour base coat. For the base itself, what I'd initially envisioned was having a really dark blue and then using hot glue to mimic sort of waves, ripples and all that. I'm fairly sure I've seen someone do it before. I want to say north of the border, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, but the hot glue I used was quite a cheap one and it didn't work, so I had to take it off, which then ruined the paint underneath. So then it was a case of rethinking my plan. So whilst I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with the base, I decided to turn to the Hippocampus, and because this was the King's Hippocampus that I was painting, it's just going to be straightforward, white and gold. And that's why I decided not to use the airbrush for this guy, because of having to put down the white chalk paint base and then put white acrylic on top. I knew I wouldn't be able to see if it had got on there properly, if it had covered properly, but I know in a way that doesn't really matter, but to me, to practice something new, because I've never used an airbrush before, I want to be able to see what I'm doing, so I just decided it made more sense to do this. Plus I didn't want to ruin the base, because I'd already done that. So that was the other thing with this guy, because his mane and tail were gold. I was trying to decide which way round to do the gold. Would I do it straight on top of the white, or would I do as Ace of Clay recommends and do the black base coat? And I made the mistake of going over using the white base coat, and the reason being was I was terrified that the black would show through, which I didn't want. And even though I'd done a test to see if it would, and it didn't, I just didn't have enough confidence in myself. So yeah, that's why I ended up doing gold over white. You can see where I'd just done the little test. So it took far more coats than it should have done. Had I done the black initially, and it probably would have only taken like 2 coats. So yeah, there's reasons why you do these things. After fixing the initial damage that the hot glue had done, I did try a couple of other methods for the water, and here I'm just dry brushing the raised areas, see if that kind of helps, and also scratching off some gold paint that I realised I'd got into his eyes because I wasn't being careful enough. And I tried slicing off chunks of hot glue, but again, it wasn't going to look good. I could tell. It was just a thought I had, but again, this is my really cheap stuff, so I don't mind. I'm not really wasting it. It's useless, so if I can find another use for it, then that would be great. But what I actually settled on was a very 90s method of doing this sort of thing, and that is watered down glue, sticking some paper in it, rolling it up and sticking it on. And actually I'm in two minds about it, how it looks in the end, but I'll talk about that more in the outro. But yeah, it was the only thing I could think of that was going to work and look semi-sensible, semi-decent, I don't know. You guys be the judge of that. is him all done. And I'm really happy with how the hippocampus itself has turned out. You know, really like what I did with the dry brushing, the gold paint. It wasn't in the original description for him, but I think it just ties it all together, which is really cool. Not 100% sold on the base. Like I said, it wasn't what I'd intended on doing. But, you know, sometimes you have to change your plans. Only downside to his eyes were I wasn't careful when I was dry brushing the gold, and it's picked up in the, like, imperfections in the eyes, which is a bit of a pain, but, you know, it doesn't look horrendous. So he's going to be sat on my desk now for ever, basically. Really like him. And yeah, next time I will do the black base coat before doing the gold. I wasn't sure it was going to work. Just noticed he's missing a tiny bit of gold paint there. Well, next time I bust out the gold, I will fix that. But yeah, really happy with him overall. That's it for this one, Cubs, and I will see you next time.